So I wanted to make a video that touches on the Neo-Darwinian theory of evolution. And as a total nerd, I will admit that it's actually one of my favorite areas to study. And in my curiosity on the subject, I actually have delved into the ever so entertaining academic research literature on the subject. With that said, I don't claim to be an expert, but I have read and understand what experts in the field are saying. In this video, I want to present some of these facts and where I and some very sharp scientists believe they logically lead. Also, please note, I will focus on the scientific details in this video and try to stay away from the unscientific stigmas and dogmas that surround this subject. I want to go right to the heart of evolutionary theory. Specifically, I want to talk about genetics. Simply put, the core of evolutionary theory is genetics. This seems obvious because it is genetics that controls the form and function of biology. And your DNA functions essentially in the same type of way that a computer code functions in a computer. All of your DNA is known as the genome, and it is in a literal sense a massive and complex information system that is made up of 4 main chemicals, which scientists represent by using the letters A, C, T, G. Therefore, I want to explore DNA from the perspective of an information system. Let's first start with some undisputed facts as they relate to any information system, including DNA. There are essentially 2 types of information: functional information and random information, which, if you want to get technical, isn't really information, I guess. So what this means is that if you took the genetic code from a human being and completely randomized its order, you would not have a living thing. Just like how if you completely randomize a computer code, you will not have a functional software. So the first fact is simply that random information does not produce life. So we will display functional information as Fi and random information as Ri. So how did we come to have this massive amount of functional information in every one of our cells? That is the question at the heart of evolutionary theory. Why? Because evolutionary theory at its most fundamental level must be the study of genetic changes over time, including and most importantly, the study of how new, novel, functional information is created. So let's explore what we know about how the genetic code changes over time. When changes happen in our DNA sequence, they happen randomly. These are called mutations, but for clarity here, I'll just call them changes. These changes may be edits or duplications in existing code or the addition of entirely new code. Let's classify these changes as either a functional change, which is a change that results in functional information, or a non-functional change, in other words, a change that results in random information. So now let's bring natural selection into the equation. We will call it S. Beneficial changes are not selected away, but we do assume that selection will have an effect on those non-functional changes, as they will make the genome more random. So we will add S to these non-functional changes. So in school and textbooks and on YouTube, we are all taught the following. We are taught that some mutations or changes are deleterious or bad for survival, and those are selected away. So we will multiply those changes by 0 since they are selected away. And with a little math, what we're left with is just the functional changes. So what happens is this process repeats over and over, resulting in more and more functional information building up over time. And that explains how we got the massive information system built up over billions of years. Case closed, right? Well, not really. In fact, some massive details are rather conveniently left out of this typical textbook story. Many don't realize that we only discovered DNA in the 1950s, and only in the last 30 years have we really got a clear picture on how it works. One groundbreaking bit of research many are not aware of is the work of Kimura. He shows that the vast majority of changes to the genome are not affected by selection at all. I'm going to repeat that. He found that the vast majority of changes in the DNA sequence are not affected by natural selection at all. So let's call these most common changes to the genome unselectable non-functional changes, also known as neutral mutations. In simpler terms, these are random changes to the genetic code that are not cleaned up by natural selection, and therefore add new random information into the code. So let's see how this complicates things. We have three possibilities anytime we have a change to our DNA code. You can have a change that results in a new usable function, or a change that is a selectable non-functional change. These are those changes that result in an organism being less fit for survival, which we will multiply by 0 since those are changes that are selected away. Or we can have an unselectable change that is also non-functional. And some basic math will show us that logically, what we would expect if there are changes unaffected by selection is for our DNA to contain both functional information and random information. Now, based on Kimura's calculations, over 99.9999999% of the changes to the genome are not affected by selection. So, realizing this, scientists hypothesized what became known as the theory of junk DNA. This is just the idea that most DNA would just be random, and that we would only have a small portion of the DNA that would actually be functional. But they were wrong. The 2001 ENCODE project and others since then have shown that the vast majority of the genome is functional. And in fact, the amount of junk DNA keeps shrinking more and more as they study it more and more. So what does this all mean? It means that at the heart of evolution, genetics, the mechanism that is supposed to control the changes in the genome over time, doesn't. Again, at the heart of evolutionary theory, natural selection has almost no control over the changes that happen over time. It appears that modern evolutionary theory has no mechanism to explain how the vast functional information in our DNA got there. And that information system is the very basis of all biological change over time. I can't understate how big of a problem this is. It must be solved, or the theory of evolution by natural selection is untenable. Now, I want to stop here because I want to make absolutely clear that I am not making a positive argument for how the information in the code arose. I have presented nothing in this video to say God did it. But what I have shown is that based on what we do know about genetics from the best minds in the field, it seems that natural selection can't be used to explain where the genetic code came from. And it is very legitimate logical grounds for me to have doubts about the theory. I also want to admit that I could be completely wrong. But until someone explains which facts are wrong or where my logic is off, I am perfectly justified in being skeptical. Science is about following the data wherever it leads, even if where it leads is unpopular. Considering the implications of this video, I expect plenty of non-scientific responses. Name-calling, because I am a religious person, will be one, followed by those who say I essentially need to trust the consensus, because I am not a scientist. But the facts and logic I presented here is from the scientists. And it exists independent of any opinion I have. So please engage with the facts, not me personally. I welcome critique, but I want it to be productive critique. I can back up every fact I presented here. And to make sure I was not being illogical, I even displayed that logic here in mathematical format. So please just attack where I am wrong factually or logically to help me see where these equations are off. Appealing to authority or attacking me personally does not challenge the facts or logic I have presented in the formulas of this video. I hope those who watch this video and who see the comments that follow will be able to tell the difference between a real argument and people who basically are bothered by facts they don't like. Anyway, I look forward to those who will make thoughtful responses, and I hope I can learn something new. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, give it a like and hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching.